Let's go ahead and go over the differences between the flagship Galaxy S25 and the low-end Galaxy A16 5G. I think this is a very interesting comparison because a lot of people are going to get the flagship S25 and a lot of people on the other end of the spectrum will get the A16. So the S25 comes in at $800. That's the standard flagship pricing. And the A16, you can get it for free. That's the phone on prepaid that everyone's gonna get when they wanna get a free phone, when they trade in a device or they just open up a line or whatever. They give these out like candy when you open up, when you bring your number to a prepaid carrier, or if they just simply, you open a line, they'll just give you the A16 for free. And I think it's a very good device compared to the price tag of the S25. So you have $800 versus free. Big difference right away is that the S25 is a more portable, smaller overall device. It is also more lightweight than the A16. When it comes to build quality, you get better build quality in the S25, glass front, glass back, aluminum frame. The A16, glass front, plastic back, plastic frame. Also, when it comes to nano SIM card slots, you have eSIM also on the S25, while you only get nano SIM card slot on the A16, so more flexibility on the S25. Another difference is dust and water resistance. You have IP68 on the S25 up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. You only get dust and splash resistance IP54 on the A16. For the display, you do have a 120 hertz refresh rate on the S25 versus only 90 hertz on the A16. So more a faster screen, a faster response on the S25. And like I mentioned earlier, you have a smaller S25 display, 6.2 inches versus a pretty big 6.7 inches on the A16. Both of these have a 1080p resolution, but you get always on display on the S25. Now, when it comes to software, although both are running Samsung UI, you're getting 7 years of updates on the S25 versus only 6 on the A25. So not much difference, but you're getting just at least 1 more year out of the S25. Chipsets are different, obviously. You got top tier Snapdragon 8 Elite on the S25 versus an Exynos or MediaTek, and that's a lower end chip either way on the A16. Now we get to something more interesting, and that's going to be the storage. Both of them start off at 128 gigs, but you have micro SD card slot on the A16. You don't get that on the S25, so that's a huge difference. The free device has the same amount of internal storage, and you can also add on to it. So that's a big advantage right there. You do have a big difference, though, in the amount of RAM. You get 12 gigs of RAM on the S25, an upgrade from the 8 from the previous year. And the starting gig of RAM is 4 gigs on the A16. So that's going to, the A16 will be slower, the next couple of years. You'll notice that lag a lot more sooner than you were to do it on the S25. The S25 will last you a lot more years and run a lot smoother. Camera differences. You got a better overall camera setup on the S25. Although both of them come with 3 camera sensors on the back, it's just overall better on the S25. You're not going to get any real good shots on the A16 unless you get a lot of light in. And the S25 has a super steady video. It's just a better camera. Also, you can shoot up to 8K on the S25 versus only 1080p on the A16. And the selfie camera shoots 4K on the flagship versus 1080p on the low-end phone. Neither of these have a headphone jack. They took that out on the A16, coming from the A15. You got more newer Bluetooth, 5.4 on the S25 versus 5.3 on the 16. Fingerprint readers, you have a under-the-display ultrasonic on the S25 versus the generic, cheaper side-mounted fingerprint reader on the A16, but both work pretty well. It's just a little bit more, kind of old school, more basic on the A16. You do get Samsung DeX on the S25. But battery, very important. You get a smaller 4,000 milliamp battery on the S25 versus the big standard 5,000 milliamp on the A16. Both have 25 watt wired charging, but you got more options in the S25 with wireless and reverse wireless charging. So the things that come to mind right away and the differences, the major takeaways to me are going to be the price, $800 versus free. If you want just a really great camera system and a very powerful phone that's going to be very fast for several years to come, is the S25. But the A16 is going to be the device that most people have, especially on prepaid, because that's the phone that they give away. Anybody that opens up a line, they give them out like candy. But you're getting a lot of perks that most people find them practical, like that bigger screen, that bigger battery. The internal storage is enough for most people. You basically have all the practical things that you need in a phone, and it's for free on the A16. So you got, very different specs, but there's some positives and some extras on the A16 that you're not getting on the S25, given the price difference. So that's been my comparison of differences from the S25 and the A16.